Hello and welcome to L2R. I'm Kinaesthesia and today I'll be going over the strategy for Valiona and Theralion on the 25 normal difficulty. These two bickering dragons can be found in the Bastion of Twilight attempting to deter you from finding your way deeper into the instance. If they fight you nearly as hard as they fight each other, you could be in for some trouble. Fortunately, we can show you how to dispatch of these dragons with fabulous flair. The double dragon encounter is all about execution. They have 97 million health each, but share a health pool. The fight has a 10-minute rage timer that should not give you too much trouble. You'll want to bring one tank, 6 to 7 healers, and a balanced makeup of DPS. There are two alternating phases to this encounter that will switch back and forth throughout the encounter. This fight is all about handling the different mechanics correctly and moving where you need to move quickly. It may take a bit of time to get accustomed to and properly execute some of the strategies and mechanics involved, but when your raid does, the whole fight will seem to come together. Phase 1 will begin with Valiona on the ground and Theralion in the air. While she is on the ground, Valiona will use two deadly abilities. The first is Blackout. This is a magic dispellable debuff placed on a random player that absorbs 20,000 healing. When it is dispelled or expires, it will cause 250,000 shadow damage split between all nearby targets. This should be handled by having the entire raid stack in one pile in melee before dispelling the debuff. This way, the raid will take minimal damage from the huge split. Her second ability is Devouring Flames. Valiona will face a random player and after 3 seconds will unleash a huge flame breath. This will cover a very large portion of the room in front of her and deals 100,000 shadow damage to any players caught in it. The best way to avoid this ability is to run behind her while it is being casted. But the breath also deals less damage the further away players are from it. If there is no time to run behind her, running away from her will work just as well. While this is going on, Theralion will fly above your raid and use two abilities of his own. For the first half of this phase, he will spam Twilight Blast at your raid. This is a single target blast that hits a random raid member and all players within 8 yards of them for 20,000 shadow damage. Because of this, your raid should remain spread out whenever Blackout is not being dispelled. For the last half of phase 1, he will instead use Dazzling Destruction. This ability can be noted by its large purple swirling ground effect that precludes the huge shadow blasts that follow. Simply move out of these areas before the attack reaches the ground. Once Dazzling Destruction has been casted 3 times, the dragons will switch roles and Theralion will fight you on the ground while Valiona takes to the skies. Theralion has two abilities he will use while grounded. Fabulous Flames causes him to spit flames on the ground. This will appear as a purple void zone that deals around 11,000 damage every second. Simply move out of this when necessary. His second ability is far more threatening. Engulfing Magic is a debuff placed on random raid members that causes 100% of the damage and healing they do to be mirrored 100% to all friendly players within 10 yards. This will last 20 seconds. This means that if you have Engulfing Magic and you hit the boss for 20,000 damage, all players within 10 yards of you will also take 20,000 damage. This also counts for hots and dots and should be noted that the debuff will increase your healing and damage by 100%. While your raid contends with this, Valiona will use two abilities as she flies above you. For the first half of phase 2, she will spam Twilight Meteorite. This debuff is placed on a random raid member and after 6 seconds will deal 120,000 shadow damage split between all players in 8 yards of the target. It's easiest to have players with Meteor run to the melee group to split their damage. During the second half of phase 2, Valiona will use Deep Breath. This works much like any other dragon's Deep Breath, as she will use a swift flyby to cover a portion of the room in flames. Her path can be predicted before each breath and should be used to determine where the safe areas will be. After she has done 3 passes, Valiona will land and phase 1 will begin again. Your raid will begin the fight by engaging Valiona. Theralion will immediately take to the air and all classes that can double dot should make sure to keep DPS on both dragons. Spread out at the start of the fight to decrease the damage from Twilight Blast. When Blackout is cast, Have the raid very quickly stack up in one group in melee range of the boss. After this has happened, dispel blackout from whoever has it and immediately spread back out. Do not attempt to heal the raid up before spreading out, because Twilight Blast will continue doing damage to the whole raid while you are stacked. Shortly after this, Valiona will cast her first Devouring Flames. Players in front of her should run past her until they are behind her. If players are very far away and will not make it behind her before the breath begins casting, they should instead run away from her to minimize the damage they will take from the breath. When this breath is finished, it is important for the raid to spread back out. Remaining stacked for too long in this phase will increase the damage the raid takes and is not safe. After a short while, Theralion will begin to cast Dazzling Destruction. The raid will notice large swirling purple circles on the ground, and moving away from these areas should be the number one concern. The tank will need to move the dragon in order to avoid being hit himself. 3 sets of 3 Dazzling Destruction will be cast total, and after the third, both dragons will switch positions. In addition to sharing a health pool, Valiona and Theralion share a threat table. This means upon landing, Theralion will already have aggro on the main tank. Pick him up in the middle of the room where he spawns, and range should once again spread out evenly around the boss. The main threat to watch out for in this phase is Twilight Meteorite. Valiona will cast this from the air, and any player that receives the debuff will need to move into the melee pile. Once the meteor has landed, the player is free to move back to their previous position. Theralion will also spawn void zones around the room with his Fabulous Flames ability. Move out of these, but try to remain somewhat spread out. 2 or 3 times during this phase, Theralion will cast Engulfing Magic on random raid members. Any player with this buff should cease all the healing and damage until they move away from other players. Failing to do this could easily cause a wipe, as all of their DPS and healing will also hit anybody standing close to them. Because this debuff increases healing and damage by 100%, it can be valuable to keeping the raid up or getting the boss down, but must be handled responsibly. Later in Phase 2, Valiona will begin to do deep breaths. She will make 3 passes of the room, covering a third of it in flames each time. Watching her movements before each pass can reveal her planned strike area and give advance warning of where the safe zones will be. She will align herself with the portion of the room she plans to engulf, and with a little patience and careful watching, it isn't hard to determine where she will hit. After she has made 3 passes, both dragons will switch positions again, and Phase 1 will start once more. This fight does not change beyond this from start to finish. As stated previously, it is about execution and properly handling all of the unique abilities. Movement and reaction is a big part of this encounter, and with some practice, no raid will have too much trouble taking it down. Thanks for checking us out here at Learn to Raid. We hope this strategy guide was helpful, and we'll see you at the next boss.
I wasn't feeling so good. I just didn't feel like playing anymore. So I went home, and I got all comfy and cozy and all scrunched up in front of my phonograph. And I sat there and I closed my eyes and listened to all the sweet